Hello, everybody, and welcome to Dawn's Wednesday, 12:30 intermediate class. I'm pushing you just a little bit with some extra chords, but remember, anytime I give you anything extra, everything is optional, so no worries. No worries about that. There will not be class next Wednesday. Not this class. No classes Wednesday and Tuesday of next week because we are having, and I'm sure most of you already got the emails, a recreational music making celebration, which is kind of like a Zoom organ fest. So we're going to have 2 days of just lots and lots of good stuff. Concerts, and yours truly will be on the second day for concerts and workshops. And I'm planning some fun songs. I hope you like them. And I'm going to ask Robert if I can get one of these songs done. I'm going to ask Robert to do a lot of screenshots on you guys. So that'll be fun. The first day we have special guest Mr. Joe Fontesha as the concert artist. Then I think he's given you all this information in the email, so check your emails. So regular classes we will not have, with the exception of Tuesday afternoon. We will take a break, and at 2:30 I will still be teaching the Conductor Magic Level 1 class for those people who are just getting started with us. They need to have a continual week by week class, or then they might lose interest. They're not as ingrained in the hobby yet as all of you are. So that's what's going on there. Next Tuesday and Wednesday, magical, musical, recreational, mysterious musical stuff celebration. So whatever we all do. And this is just the best hobby anybody could ask for. All right, let's go into our songs. For the first song today, it is Sing, which was a 1971 song written for Sesame Street. And it was written to be Sesame Street's signature song. I did not know that. In 1973, it gained popularity when performed by the Carpenters, who made it a #3 hit on the Billboard Hot 100. Barbra Streisand did also a 1972 version, which actually came out before the Carpenters did, and released it as a single, and that reached number 28 on Easy Listening. So the one that we pretty much remember is the Carpenters hit. Others were all in the 70s. Julie Andrews and Perry Como did a version. Bing Crosby and Fred Astaire did a version, and so did Sammy Davis Jr. So it's just a really nice, uplifting song, and heaven knows that's what we need right now, is some nice, uplifting music. As far as the roadmap for Sing a Song, it's very easy. You play all of page 1, all of page 2, and then you go back to the second to the last line, and you're just going to repeat the la la do la las. La la do la las, okay? Or do doody doodies, whatever you want to say. And then you fade that out. Now, if you want to play the song more than once, I highly recommend skipping the la la las and repeating from the middle of line 4 and then go back to the beginning and do that section again, and just ending with the la la las. Now you might even want to consider using the la la las as an introduction. That would be a great way to start the song, and then go right into it. So whatever you want to do to arrange the song would be fine. And I did use rhythm, the song setups, by the way. Song setup on the beautiful symphony organ comes up to Cab Drivin' with the alter style. With the alter style at 130 beats per minute. So I'm going to play the song on Cab Driver and let you listen. See, I've got all these singers backing me up. It's kind of fun. So you could just fade that out at the end. So you can actually start your song with the la 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 la's, and that would be a good way to start it as well. But you notice I didn't have to do any fill-ins because the doot doot do guys, those Mills Brother guys, they were actually doing the fill-ins for me all by themselves. So that was one of the advantages of having the rhythm cab driving, and that is in the beautiful symphony orchestra and up. Now, for those people that would like to have cab driving, see me after class. Oh, yes. Don't worry if you do not. In the Freedom 3, I used standard swing time, also standard gypsy jazz. Anything that has a nice little bounce is going to be fabulous with this. Traditional two-beat piano. In the easy organs, easy ones, twos, fours, tens, standard pianist is very good. Oops, let's let in Mr. Purcell. Come on in, John and Suzanne. Nice to have you today. Okay, and also pop pianist, which is your ragtime piano, is good on those easy instruments. So something bouncy. Now on some of the other instruments, song setup brings it up to the harmonicats. Now you have to make it go a little faster, so put that up to 130. I also liked this on Dream Kiss, for those of you that have that rhythm, or Gypsy Rag is excellent, or go to your honky tonk. You want something that's going to give it a little bit of a bounce. And I'm sure you can find 100 other rhythms that will work on this. All right, so what kind of chords did I add? A few, but remember, chords are optional. You do not need them, but get out your pencils. Line 1, make that D minor a D minor 7, a D minor 7. If you wish, remember, 7s are always optional. So you must play D and F, but you may play C, D, and F.
Dawn,
Yes?
I just got in. What song are you on?
We're on Sing, page 84.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Okay. All right. Let's continue. The second line. The C chord is good for 2 measures. Measure 3 over the B flat for strong. Put in a G minor, gorilla minor, and you may put a 7 on that one. Gorilla minor is G and B flat. Gorilla and butterfly flat. If you want to add the 7, it will be an F frog. The last measure of that line over that white whole note with no letter in it because it's still tied, put in a C7, chicken 7, which would be C and B flat. Let's go to line 3. The F, make it an F major 7. Those are easy because it's just the letter -1. Your 2 notes are E elephant and F fish. Let's go to line 4. Cross out the D and replace it with A minor, alligator minor, or A minor 7. The 2 notes you need are C and A, chickens and alligators. I'm sure the alligators would love the chickens. Invite them over for lunch. And if you want to put the 7 in, it would be C, G, and A. Chickens, gorillas, and alligators. That's good for 1 measure. 4th line, measure 2, first beat. Now put your D or D7 back in. And if you are brave, you can turn it into a D9. Now that's completely optional because this is an intermediate class, but some people like to push themselves. A 9 chord is 4 fingers. Which 4 are they? C, chicken, D, dinosaur, E, elephant, and F, sharp, sharp fish. Otherwise, D7, C, and D is all you need.
Dawn, was that over the D in the second?
Nope, that's over the C, over happy. Fourth line, second measure. First B.
Oh, I got it.
Yep, over the C for happy. All right, next measure, cross out the G and replace it with D minor, dog minor, or D minor 7, which would be C, D, and F. And that's good for one measure. The last measure of that line, put your G or G7 back in. Gorilla 7, F and G. The last line of that page, you may put a 7 on the D minor, which would be C, D, and F. Otherwise, just D and F is all you need. Let's go to the top of the next page. The C is good for one measure. Second measure, over the G for the word last, put in a C major 7, chicken major 7, which is C and B, butterfly, or you may put the B on the bottom and I won't look at it. B and C, it's always the letter -1. Now cross out the F in that same line and replace it with G minor, gorilla minor, or G minor 7, which would be F, G, and B flat. Second line, first measure, right small. You are going to have 3 chords. Beat 1 over that whited in dotted half note, C or C7, chicken 7, C and B flat. Beat 3, which is right in the middle of the measure, G minor, gorilla minor, or gorilla minor 7, which would be F, G, and B flat. And beat 4, which is over the C for don't, go back to the C7. Now, why is that optional? Because the G minor is only there for one beat. So if you want to just play the C7 for the entire measure, please feel free to do that. Second measure, cross out the C and replace it with F, major 7, fish major 7, E and F are your 2 notes. The E7 is fine, D and E. Third line, A minor, you may put a 7 on it, so it would be C, G, and A. Chickens, gorillas, and alligators. The D in measure 2 can be a D7, C and D, or it can be a D9. There's that adventurous chord again. C, D, E, F sharp, all 4 in a row. Cross out the G or G7 and replace it with D minor, dog minor, or D minor 7, which would be C, D, and F. That's good for one measure. The last measure of the line, of the third line, over that whited in half note, put your G or G7 back in. Fourth line, the C chord is good for 1.5 measures. In the middle of measure 2, you may put in a G7, or you can skip it completely if you want. All that G7 does is lead you into the C for the la la la's, or it leads you into the C, which is back at the beginning of the song. Let's go to the la la la's. Last line. First measure, over the G for da, da. C major 7, which would be chicken and butterfly, or butterfly and chicken, whichever order you want to do. The F, make it an F major 7. F major 7 is E and F. Major 7s are so easy to learn because it is. It's just the letter -1. And they just sound so cool. And then the G7 leads you back to the C in the middle of the fourth line, because that's where you go back to repeat. So that being said, what key are we in? And why is that important?
C,
C, we are in the key of C. Why are we not in the key of G? The
because it
G,
ends in C.
go ahead, David.
It ends in C.
It actually does end in C. That G7 is the lead-in chord to take you back to the C. Yes.
Yep.
Yes, absolutely. And if it's got a 7 on it, chances are you know right away that's not the key of the song. And when you have a repeat and fade, it is a little bit more difficult to tell which is the key. But it is the key of C, and that's the only reason you need to know that is so that you know which introduction to use. That's the only reason. Okay, what else did I do this on? And I'm still going to give you fingering. The Harmonic Hats was the other song setup, and I believe they use the same presets, would be piano strings on top. And I'm not going to play the whole thing, but I just want you to get an idea of this rhythm. Listen to how nice that bounces. That's what you're looking for. And it comes up at 130. Now remember, you don't have to start it at 130. You can slow it down until your fingers get comfortable. Okay? Let's do some fingering. E1, E1, G3, F2. At the end of that tied F, put a check mark. The F quarter note is a 1, A3, G2. At the end of that held G, put a check mark. G1, C4, B flat 3. At the end of the held B flat, at the end of the line, put a check mark. Third line, A3, 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 C5, E1, G2. At the end of that line, check mark. That just means take a breath with your hand, lift it, and put it in a new position. Line 4, C3, 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 E5, low D1. F can be 2 or 3, whichever one falls there first. Fifth line, last line on the page, E1, E1, G3, F2. At the end of the held F, check mark. Lift your hand and reposition it. The F quarter note is a 1, A3. Top of the next page, G2, G2, A3. Put an arrow on the next G. This is a heads up. This is going to be unconventional fingering. Put a 1 on that G. You have lots of high notes that you have to reach. The C is a 2. F5, E4, D3. C2 in the next line. E4, E4, D3, C2, D3, E4, D3, C2, D3. Third line, E4, E4, D3, C2, B1, A2 with a circle. You have to cross it over in order to get there. G1, G1, D5, C4. The la-la-las, G4, G4, E2, G4, A5, E2. G4, G4, E2, G4, A5. Now, there's two different ways to do this last part. I would put a check mark right after that A and get my forefinger down to the E. That's kind of a stretch from the A to the E, so you got to kind of make a little jump. You can because there's a comma, and you can actually take that little breath and do E4, F5, 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 E4, D3, and the low G is a 1. You got a low dip to go. And that's probably the hardest note for you to hit because from 3 to 1, how far is that from the D down to the G? So you're going to want to check that out and kind of get a feel for that. Okay, any questions so far? Nope, are we good?
Dawn, can you repeat that last line again? The first measure into the second measure.
Yes. G4, G4, E2, G4, A5, check mark, little check mark,
All right.
E4, F5, 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 E4, D3, low G1.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Daun,
Anything else?
the low G1, is that 2 octaves down?
No, that's not 2 octaves down. That's an octave down from the G that starts out the line. See the G at the beginning of the line?
Yeah.
That G is an octave down from there. That's actually a good question. We don't usually have something that goes that far down underneath the staff. But that's exactly what it is. It's an octave down from the G on the second line, which is on the second line of the staff, which is the very first G of the last line. That's an octave down. And yes, you are going to have to look and figure out how far of a reach that is, and then take it from there and feel where those notes are. Because it does go kind of fast. Now, guess what? If you want to skip the la la la's, put an ending button on. How about that for a deal? You're absolutely allowed to do that. All right, now I'm going to play this also on Dream Kiss, which is another bouncy background. And instead of using the piano, I'm going to use a guitar. So there you have a nice bouncy background. Now I'm going to go to the lower keyboard. That's actually the hardest part of the song. Because you do have to get those chords in, and you got to figure out where your fingers are going. You have to stretch from one end of the octave to the other. Okay, any questions about Sing before we move on? So nice, uplifting song. So if you ever are feeling a little bit down or sluggish, this would be a nice bouncy song to pull out, and it just makes you feel good when you play a song like this. All right, let's turn the page. Now let's get romantic. Wow. All right, smoke gets in your eyes. This is going to give you a whole different taste. This is a show tune written by American composer Jerome Kern and lyricist Otto Harbach for the 1933 musical Roberta. The first recorded performance was by Gertrude Nixon with orchestral direction from Ray Sinatra. Do you recognize that name? The orchestra was directed by Frank's second cousin in 1933. I didn't know Frank had a second cousin named Ray. Now you do, who was also in the music business. Paul Whiteman had the first hit recording in 1934, 1 year later. And then in 35, Irene Dunn performed it for the film adaptation of Roberta, starring Fred Astaire, Ginger Rogers, and Randolph Scott. It was also a #1 chart hit in 1959. How many years later was that? 34 to 59 for the Platters. Do you remember them? That's probably the one that most of you remember the song by. Their version became a #1 hit in the United States on the Billboard Hot 100. Buck Ram, the producer, said that Harbach, now you remember who Harbach is, he's the lyricist, he praised them for reviving his song with really good taste. Now, the widow of Jerome Kern, she hated the recording. She disliked it so much that she actually considered legal action to prevent the Platters from distributing the song. Can you imagine? We all have our likes and dislikes as far as how a song should be done. Interesting, huh? All right. Who else recorded this? Tommy Dorsey, the Tommy Dorsey Orchestra back in 38. Benny Goodman in 41. And he had two vocalists working with him. One was Helen Forrest, and after her was Peggy Lee. In 1946, Nat King Cole and his trio did this one very nicely. In 49, Harry Belafonte with saxophonist Zoot Sims. And then in 1950, Joe Stafford and Charlie Parker did a nice version of this. So there's some trivia for you. And it's a beautiful song that most of us know. It's a little more tricky than the first one. Why? Because first of all, look at the notes. You are stretching in line 1 more than an octave. You're going from a G down to the E and all the way up to that high G. And then in the next line, you're going even higher than that. And you've got some long intervals. What's an interval? An interval is the distance between notes. So in the first line, you go all the way from an A up to a G. That's not quite an octave. And then in line 2, you go right in the middle of the line from a D down to an E. And then in the next measure, you have a D down to the D. That is a whole octave. So you have some very long intervals, some very long stretches. So that's what makes this a little trickier to make sure that you get the right fingers and the right notes. And to top it off, I'm going to add some juicy chords. Why? Because I can. Now remember, your chords are completely optional. If I add something, it's a challenge. It's meant to be a challenge for you to choose to play it or not. You can just play the chords that are there, and your song is going to sound absolutely fabulous. So no worries. There is no roadmap. You just play the song straight through. That's a wonderful thing about this one. All right, let's take a look at the chords. The G chord is good for 2 counts. Beat 3 over the F sharp. Now remember, these are optional. B minor, butterfly minor. Your 2 notes are D dinosaur and B butterfly, and that's good for 1 count. Beat 4 over the G. C sharp diminished. It's a 2-fingered chord, C sharp and G, gorilla. The next measure, no changes. The third measure on the top line, G is good for 2 counts. Now this chord is completely optional. It's a G augmented, G, A-U-G, and it's a 3-fingered chord. And your notes are G, B, and D sharp. Gorilla, butterfly, dinosaur sharp. You can put the D sharp on the bottom, by the way. It's just going to read in the window as a D sharp or an E flat augmented. That's the only thing that's going to be different. It will still be the same chord. Let's go to line 2. Make the C a C major 7. C major 7. C and B, chickens and butterflies. You may play the A7 or you may substitute a C sharp diminished. We had that in the top line. C sharp and G. Try them both. Both those chords sound absolutely fine. Second measure, cross out the G and replace it with B minor, butterfly minor. Your two notes are D dinosaur and B butterfly. That's good for 2 counts. Beat 3 over the E, 8th note for something. And that's the high E, not the lower E. E minor is the chord, the E and G, elephants and gorillas. The next measure, no changes. A minor is C and A. D7 is C and D. The next line, G is fine, E7 is fine, D and E. A minor is fine, C and A. The D7 is fine, C and D. And now we repeat. Now it goes back to the same 8 measures that we had on the top. The G is good for 2 counts. Over the F sharp, you may put in a B minor, butterfly minor, which would be D and B, dinosaurs and butterflies for 1 count. Beat 4 over the G, C sharp diminished.
From who?
Okay, there it was. C sharp diminished is C sharp and G. The A minor is fine, the D7 is fine. The last line, the G is fine for 2 counts, and then you have a completely optional chord, G augmented, G, A-U-G, which would be G, gorilla, B, butterfly, and D sharp, dinosaur sharp. And the D sharp can go on the bottom. The C, make it a C major 7, C and B, chickens and butterflies. You may play the A or A7, or you may substitute the C sharp diminished. Use your ears and play the one that really sounds the best to you. They both sound fine. C sharp diminished is C sharp and G. Cross out the G and replace it with B minor, butterfly minor, which is D and B, dinosaurs and butterflies, for 2 counts. Over the E for the word you, E minor. As you can see, it's exactly what we did up top on the upper when we did it for the first 8 measures. E minor is E and G, and now we move to the next page. The top line, no changes. Woohoo! The second line, cross out the B flat and replace it with F minor, fish minor, which would be F and A flat. Cross out the C and throw it away. We're going to play F minor for the whole measure. The next measure, cross out the F minor and the B flat. We're just going to play B flat for the whole measure. B flat or B flat 7 for the whole measure. So write that over the F minor. So all 4 of those chords that were in there, we're crossing them out, and we're going to play F minor for 1 measure and B flat 7 for the next measure. Let's go to 3rd line. Take that D7, cross it out and throw it away. We don't need it. Now, if you like the way it sounds there, go ahead and put it in, but that's not in the original sheet music. The G is fine, the E7 is fine, the A minor is fine, the D7 is fine. Here we go again. Now it starts the same The same 8 measures that we had up here. Almost. When we get to the end, it changes a little bit. So the G is good for 2 counts. Over the F sharp for laughing, B minor, butterfly minor, which would be D and B, dinosaurs and butterflies. And over the G for friends, C sharp diminished, which is C sharp and G gorilla. 4th line, A minor is good, D7 is good. Next measure, the G is good. You may play the G7 or you may play that G augmented chord, which is G, B, and D sharp, or D sharp, G, and B, whichever one sounds the best to you. And then the C, you can make that a C major 7, C and B. The A can be an A7, or you may substitute a C sharp diminished, which is C sharp and G. The 4th line, cross out the G and replace it with B minor, butterfly minor, which is D dinosaur and B butterfly. That's good for 2 counts. Over the high E for when, E minor, E and G, elephants and gorilla. The A minor is good, the D7 is good, and you have one more optional chord. If you wish, over the low D for the word in, you may put a D augmented, D-A-U-G, spells dog. And the notes are D dinosaur, F sharp, sharp frogs, and A sharp, sharp alligators. Any questions? There's a lot of chords, but there's also a lot of repetition. If you learn the first 8 measures of the song, you are 75% of the way done.
Dawn, could you do the last line again, please?
Yes, ma'am. The last line, cross out the G and replace it with B minor, butterfly minor. Over the E for the word when, E minor, elephant minor, E and G. The A minor is good, the D is good, and over the low D, put a D augmented. This is completely optional chord. Whoops. Get Diana back in. The low D is a 1. I'm sorry, we haven't got there yet. The low D is D augmented, D, F sharp, A sharp. Got it?
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Okay. Before I do fingering, I'm going to play it. It does come up to song setup. Song setup brings it up to Smoky Strings. Diana, your favorite background. Randy loves this one too. At 70 beats a minute. And it comes up with strings on the top and piano on the bottom. And I like to add a duet the second time you start playing the melody, which is line 3, measure 3. They say someday you'll find. You want to put a duet right there. Okay, so let's see what this does on Smoky Strings. slow that whole last line, you can really just drag that out and slow it down all you want. Or you could change a preset and play the whole thing again. And if you play the whole thing again, you may wish to transpose up one step, because that would just give it a little bit of a nice arrangement for you. Okay, let's do some fingering. G3, F sharp 2, A4, G3, E1, C4. Now that is a long stretch, but do it that way. B3, D5. That's why you needed to have that fifth finger free. C4, put an arrow on the A, make it a 1, so you can reach all the way up to the G, and the G is going to be a 4. Don't make it a 5. Why? Because you still have to go up to a high A in the second line. A5, G4, D sharp 2, E3, F
Dawn,
sharp 4, check
Dawn,
mark. Yes.
I got on the finger in the second line. Start.
Second line.
Yeah, second line.
Okay.
I missed them.
A5. The G, you're coming off of a 4. That G is a 4.
Okay.
So A5, G4, D sharp 2, E3, F sharp 4, check mark. Move your hand. E5, D4, low E1, G2, D4, E5, D4, low D1, E2, third line, B5, A4, G3, F sharp 2, A4, G3, E1, the high C is a 4, B3, D5, C4, put a little arrow on this next A, make it a 1, and the high G on the next line is G4, high A5, G4, D sharp 2, E3, F sharp 4, check mark, E5, D4, low E1, G2, top of the next page, D4, E5, D4, low D1, E2, G3, at the end of that held G, check mark. This is where you might want to change a preset, because now we go into the bridge. G1, B flat 2, high G5, D2, F4, E flat 3, G1, B flat 2, D5, C4, B flat 3, low C1, E flat 2, B flat 4, B flat 4, B flat 4. G1, B flat 2, high G5. You see what I mean about all these long intervals and skipping around that we do? D2, F4, E flat 3, G1, third line, B flat 2, D5. Whoops, Levon wants in. Sorry, Levon. C4, B3, A2, B3, B3, A2. Check mark. And then we go back to the same fingering that we did at the beginning. G3, F sharp 2, A4, G3, E1. Next line, high C4, B3, D5, C4, put a little arrow on the A, make it a 1. The high G is a 4. That's a long stretch, you can do it. A5, G4, D sharp 2, E3. Last line, F sharp 4, check mark. E5, G4, D4, excuse me, that's a D, low E1, G2, B3, D4, E5, D4, low D1, E2, and G3. And Sue Kelly wants back in. Okay. All right. Any questions about the fingering? If you guys missed it or you need something else on that, shoot me an email, and I'm more than happy to just send it straight to you so that you can see what it is. This is a little bit more of a difficult song. I was very surprised to see this in this book called Simple Songs. Because it's not that simple, but it is gorgeous. So this is one that you might really seriously want to learn, either with the extra chords or even without them, because it's just a really nice song. On the Freedom 3, the mellow, easy 8-beat at 70, or any of your smooths on your easy instruments. I'm sure you can find a million other backgrounds on your instruments that are going to be fabulous for this particular song. I also did this on Candelabra, which is under your classic, and did it on number 9, which is, ooh, that's not what I wanted. I thought number 9 is big strings. Oh, something switched. That's all right. Okay, something switched, but that's okay. And I also did it on Dinner and Dance, A6. Okay, and I used a saxophone section. That's what I did. Dinner and Dance, I used a saxophone on the top, which is preset 9, and I just wanted to give it a little different flavor because the big bands did do this. Well, let's put on an introduction. Intro in G, your key is G. I'm going to go to another sound. Don't be afraid to drag out that whole last line, and then any ending will be fine.
I have a question.
Yes.
You played through the first time, and you had to do it in the middle. Let's say you want to play it again, and you want to go up an octave. Do we take off the duet?
It depends on how it sounds to you. You have to try it because different instruments are going to sound fabulous, an octave up with the duet, and others are not. So it's just a matter of you planning it and whichever backgrounds you're using and whichever sounds you're using. If you're going to go up an octave, that's perfectly fine. If you want to keep it on the duet, use your ear to be the judge for that.
Okay.
Okay? Because
Thanks.
that's, yeah, you're very welcome. This is such a beautiful song. Watch your distances. Watch the eighth note triplets. Eighth note triplets are 3 notes in the space of 1 beat. So watch them. You do know the song well enough that if you play it the way you remember it being done, you will be 100% right on it. You will be good.
Dawn, what was the background you used on that, the last one?
The last one I used Dinner and Dance. Dinner and Dance. It's under swing.
Thank you.
Now I also used my absolute all-time favorite, Strings 101,
I loved it.
but Smoky Strings sounded a little bit nicer than Strings 101, so I didn't even play it, but I did go there and try it. Okay?
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
What tempo did you use on Smoky Strings?
70.
Thank you.
70. Yeah, this is, if you love a song, you are going to sit down and try it. Learn this song in 8 measure sections, which would give you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's that whole first section. Once you have those first 8 measures learned, you have 75% of the song learned. So just take it apart in little sections. If that's too much, then do in 4 measures. Or they asked me how I knew my true love was true, and stop. And just learn that section first. Don't be afraid to try little bites at a time. It's going to make your practicing more fun. It's going to make it easy. The problem with a lot of people is they take a look at it and go, oh my gosh, that's 2 pages with lots and lots and lots of notes. I think I'll turn to the next song. Don't do that on this one. This one is so pretty. And it is a little more of a challenge, but take it apart. You can even slow it down to more than, go lower than 70. Take it down to where it's comfortable for you to learn everything. Any questions? Nope? Good. Have fun with this one. This one's nice. All right, next week, Somewhere Out There, and Sweet Caroline.
No lesson next week.
Dawn, we don't have that.
Oh, you're right. Thank you. Thank you for reminding me. We'll do either 1 song or 2 songs in 2 weeks from now. Do not forget, next week will be our celebration of mystical, magical, musical merrymaking for recreational purposes. And we've got lots of good stuff planned for you. So do not miss it. Your class will be the workshops that we do. And I am part of the workshops on the second day. I'm also part of the concert the second day. The first day is Mr. Joe Fontesha. He'll do the concert, and he is also part of the workshops that day. Check your emails. I think Robert's already sent you kind of a little schedule of events. And the only thing that we will have is the level 1 conductor magic at 2:30 on Tuesday. Otherwise, my regular classes will be canceled for those 2 days, and I'll see you all again in 2 weeks from that. But I'll see you all next week on the Organ Fest, the celebration of music. Good. Anything else? You want to say hello to somebody that you missed today? Nope, we're good? Okay, so everybody wave. We'll see you all next week.
I missed everybody.
Love you guys. See you
Goodbye.
again. Bye.